The Golden Compass is the first book in Philip Pullman's trilogy called His Dark Materials. It follows a headstrong teenager named Lyra who tries to solve a mystery about why kids are disappearing in her town. It takes her through parallel universes on an epic fantasy quest where all the children have demons, animals that represent their own other self that follow them around. If you consider yourself a fantasy lover and you have never read His Dark Materials, you should definitely read it. It's been around since the 90s and it has a legion of followers. The Scorpio Races is an epic fantasy based on a Celtic legend. It is completely action-packed and not for the faint-hearted. There's a lot of violence in this book. It's about a girl who has lost her brother and signs up to be the first woman to race her horse in this annual competition. She's, of course, met with hostility and finds an ally. This book is told in dual perspectives between our main character and another person who is writing. So it's told between a female and a male character's voice. The Monstermologist is quite a thick book, but please don't be dismayed by that. It reads really fast. If you are into horror, this is the one on the list for you. This book is gruesome and mysterious and centers around a doctor, in quotes, who has a young orphan as his assistant who's growing up watching all of these things that this doctor does, and they often involve a graveyard. Ink and Bone is the first book in the trilogy called The Great Library. It centers around a library that is alchemical, magical, and controls the knowledge of the community. When Jess is supposed to be learning his trade and go into service of the library, his friend accidentally creates a device that might tip the scales of power. And as they try to understand what this might mean, they start to realize that the library and knowledge have more power than human lives. Imagine it's the future, and we've completely destroyed the Earth. But we have discovered that we can live on another planet, except it takes a long time to get there, hundreds of years. So, certain people have been chosen to be cryogenically frozen on the ship, and they will wake up when they arrive at their new home planet. However, our main character wakes up only 10 years into the trip. Why did she wake up? Who woke her up? Worst of all, when she's awake, all her family and friends are still asleep. So she is now stuck on this ship with this mystery, and maybe she wasn't even supposed to wake up. Maybe somebody actually wants her really dead. Red Queen is awesome and epic. If you like Game of Thrones or The Hunger Games, you will probably like Red Queen. I know many students who have read this series and absolutely loved it. It has a lot of the classic dystopian fantasy in it. There are people who have and those who have not. The haves have superpowers and are in control. And of course, there will be fighting. But this book has so many more twists and turns than you would originally expect. So if you think it sounds like something you've already read, give it a try, because I guarantee you, you will love it. Trevor Noah is a comedian who was originally on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. He's from South Africa, and he was born a few years before apartheid ended. Apartheid was basically the government separating blacks and whites, creating ghettos for black people to live in, and basically taking away all of their rights and their lands. There are many tribes in South Africa. They have 12 official languages. But when Trevor was born, he was born a crime. Blacks and whites were not allowed to mix and mingle. They were not allowed to have children together. And his mother had to hide him when he was a baby. So this is the story of Trevor growing up in South Africa as the country is changing and what his life was like, him and his friends, to grow up in a dangerous and violent place where it looked like there is no hope. It's very contemporary. You will learn a lot about South Africa and a part of history that we don't really learn about in school. The Boy Who Harnessed the Wind is a very inspiring, true story about William Kamkwamba, who is from Malawi. Using some old discarded science books and various parts of broken things that he found, like bicycles, tractor parts, scrap metal, he wanted to bring Malawians what many don't have: running water and electricity. I encourage you to read this book and also check out some of the interviews with him on YouTube. There's also a movie made about him. It's incredibly inspiring and just very interesting about one person who was so determined to make his world and his community better. On this slide, there are two very unique short story collections. Pretty Monsters by Kelly Link is a collection of 10 short stories where nothing is quite as it seems. There's an old woman who carries a purse, but inside the purse is a tiny village. Everywhere you look, magic is happening, and it's not always a good kind of magic. In the Curiosities, we have a very unique book where three famous young adult authors challenged each other to write spooky stories. And what we have here is not only the stories that they wrote, but also their correspondence with each other. They've drawn pictures and notes on the edge of the pages and talked to each other and joked with each other about the stories they were creating. It looks at first like someone damaged the books because it has writing on it, but it's really the authors jabbing at each other. Infinite Sky by C.J. Flood is a more realistic fiction that tells the tale about a family crumbling apart in the beginning. Iris's mom has left, her father's drinking heavily, her brother's unavailable for her. She's trying to hold it all together when some travelers start squatting on their land, and it seems like it might be a recipe for disaster with everything else that's going on. The thing I really loved about this book is the foreshadowing. In the beginning, we understand there's a sense that something is going to happen and there's going to be grief, but the buildup is so slow and lovely, and by the time you get to the end of the book, you may be shedding a few tears. Ashes to Asheville is another tear-jerking realistic fiction on your list. It's about a girl who has two moms and one of them passes away before the book begins. This is a few years before same-sex marriage was legal, and so she's forced to move in with her grandmother. Her sister shows up one day and decides that they should spread their mom's ashes at the last place they were happy as a family. So this is one of those road trip books. It takes place in only 24 hours. If you like a good mystery, try The Clockwork Scarab or any of the other Stoker and Holmes novel. This one is fun. It's set in Victorian England, and it features the teenage niece of Sherlock Holmes and the teenage sister of Bram Stoker, who wrote Dracula. And together they team up to solve crimes. It's very interesting, sort of steampunky type Victorian England historical fiction. Here's another mystery on your list, Catherine Howe's Conversion. It's based on a true story of something that happened 300 years ago in Salem. One person started laughing and couldn't stop, and then that sickness started passing around to others. Why was everyone laughing, and why couldn't they stop? They thought they were mad. They thought they were witches. This story takes place in present day at an all-girls Catholic school. And one day, the queen bee starts laughing. There's not much in this world that scares me more than creepy children. In The Bad Seed, a play, Rhoda seems to be the most perfect little child. When one of her classmates is found dead, the boy's trophy is found in her room. This mother is convinced her child could not have done anything like this. She's so perfect and innocent. and it seems that Rhoda can convince the rest of the world that she is also perfect and innocent. When Dimple Met Rishi is the kind of realistic fiction that turns the meet cute on its head. When Dimple first meets Rishi, she actually throws a Starbucks drink in his face. She's supposed to be tending a summer camp for coding, and she didn't know that her parents set her up there to meet Rishi to see if they would fall in love and get married. So she's mad. But should she really be mad at Rishi? It's not his fault. This novel is so cute and romantic and told in alternating perspectives between Dimple and Rishi. Open Road Summer is one of the more beachy type reads on your list. It's about a girl named Reagan who has just broken up with her bad boyfriend. But her best friend is a world-famous country singer and is about to hit the road for her 24-city tour. What a perfect time to escape everything, right? But then the opening band for her best friend is this guy. So, of course, it's not going to be the exact perfect girls' trip that they had planned. This book is full of drama and romance and friendship. For those of you who like graphic novels, or for those of you who like World War II history, and if you like both, this book is perfect for you. It's the story of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, who was a Lutheran minister in Germany, and he was absolutely horrified by not only what Hitler represented, but the fact that there were people who were following him and who believed in what he said. As a minister, he's supposed to be preaching love and kindness, but as you'll learn in this book, he gets wrapped up in the plot to kill Hitler. Remember that these are just some of the books on your list, and that you don't have to read a book off the list suggested by your school. You can read anything you want. And the more books you read, the more you can log into our summer reading program, enter to win a Barnes & Noble gift card. So head over to our Padlet and check out the summer reading info, as well as you can see the lists of what is available digitally as well as in paper format. Many of these books are available as ebooks that you can download for free, or as audiobooks, which also totally count as reading.